What's up, guys? I've been Fox here. Welcome to an all-new episode of FoxCast Creepypasta, where today we are going to be reading Took a Factory Job. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. By Mr. Outlaw. Now, this is a pretty good story. I've heard quite a bit about it. It's got 97% upvotes, so it's ought to be pretty good. So let's do this. So without further ado, let's get right into this, shall we? Let's go. I took a factory job. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. By Mr. Outlaw. I should have never dropped out of college. The difference between Zuckerberg and I is astronomical, but I was delusional enough to think otherwise. I wasn't completely hopeless, though. I had an idea for what I wanted to become, but that's irrelevant here. This is a story of how I ended up at the factory. I was living by myself in San Antonio at the time. My folks were kind enough to give me a bit of moving out cash, and I was also working part-time during my school. That's how I've been sustaining myself, but as much as I loved them, there was no way in hell I was moving back. That just wasn't an option. After taking up a few temporary stints around the city, bills started piling up. In addition to that, I had also been fired from my part-time. Not that mattered that much. I was measuring peanuts there. I started looking everywhere, trying to secure another steady source of income. But that turned out to be quite the process. As my bills started stacking, so did my rejection emails. At first, I was being selective, trying to find something that was considerably higher than minimum wage. That was just wishful thinking. In the end, I decided to settle for a $9 per hour gig at a local restaurant. But then I found something better. A lot better. It was a singular flyer taped to the side of a local bus stop shelter. I looked over at it and was put into a state of absolute incredulity. We're looking for some hard-working individuals to help out at our new factory. Starting rates at $21 an hour. Please email or give us a call if you think you are up for the task. No previous warehouse experience required. The last line got me. No frickin' experience required. Now, if I were smarter, I would see where this was going. If something is too good to be true, you know the rest. But I suppose that desperate times only yielded desperate measures. They also make you disregard the concept of reality. I decided to give them a call later that day. I thought I'd show more initiative than sending an email. I don't know. After a few rings, a younger sounding woman picked up.
Hello, this is the Dulles Company. Marie speaking. How may I help you today?
I tried to do a quick recollection in my head. Have I ever heard of a Dulles Company? I hadn't. But it's not like I know every single company in Texas, so it wasn't an immediate cause for concern. The phone call went surprisingly well. A bit too well in retrospect, but hey, desperate times. We set up an interview for the following day at around 9 a.m. Things were starting to look up. That morning, I drove out to the factory address. It was kind of on the outskirts of town, but it wasn't the biggest problem. It was only a 25-minute drive, and there would have been a little traffic on the way there. I suppose you could call this place medium-sized. I mean, I haven't seen too many factories in real life, so it's hard to make an apt comparison. It was located to the side of a narrow road, right next to two large cornfields. I parked in the lot adjoining the road, which was about 3/4 full. I got out of my car, straightened my tie, and slicked my hair back once more before walking in. The lady had told me to go to the manager's office, which was apparently located to the left of the entrance as soon as I walked in. I found it easily enough. The door was closed, so I knocked, and knocked. I must have stood there for 5 minutes, but nobody answered. At first, that is. Assuming that the guy was just simply late, I took a seat on the chair parallel to the door. However, I was surprised when I started hearing movement coming from the inside. It sounded like the shuffling of feet, along with multiple hushed voices conversing. Eventually, the door opened up, and I was met by a tall, bulky man dressed less casually than me. He shook my hand and kindly introduced himself as Winston. When I walked into his office, I realized that was the two of us in there. I could have sworn I heard somebody else, but maybe not. I contemplated asking for the briefest moment, but then decided that there was no benefit in doing so. We sat down and he began to ask me some questions. Most of them were regarding my physical strength and endurance. I was in pretty good shape myself, and that was evident from my not-so-subtle wardrobe choices, so there was no problem. In fact, everything seemed fine about the whole process. No red flags just yet, aside from the bizarre delay that it took him to open the door for me. I was supposed to come in at 7 a.m. the very next day. Early start, but whatever. Beggars cannot be choosers. It was a generic place, with assembly line production and heavy machinery sprawled across the wide, concrete floor. I was given a rundown of exactly what I would be doing and how to do it. The factory's production was mostly focused on vehicle accessories like trailer hitches. However, my job was even easier than I thought it was going to be. Since I had a forklift license, all that I had to do was transport materials from one end of the factory to the other. It was hardly strenuous, and for the first few days I estimated that I was only actually spending about 2.5 hours driving back and forth. The other 5.5 hours simply comprised of waiting around for somebody to finish sealing the shipping boxes. I actually managed to get a hefty amount of reading in, which was great. But I doubt you want to hear about all this. To summarize, my job was a cakewalk for the first few weeks. The only peculiar thing I noticed, though, was the fact that a lot of the workers sparsely ever spoke to me or even to each other. My interaction was mostly limited to 2 other new guys that had been hired, Chad and Sergio. They were chill enough, and our conversations were about as normal as you could expect for 3 dudes in their early 20s working at a factory. It was during the 3rd week when the first interesting occurrences began to manifest. I was doing my usual rounds when I noticed that one of the assembly line workers was sitting absolutely still. Now, I expected them to take breaks. They were human after all. But this woman simply wasn't moving. I observed her apparent detachment as vehicle lighting fixtures slowly moved past her. The bizarre part was that her posture remained impeccable. I slowly drifted towards her, trying to get a glimpse at what she might have been looking at. As I made my way past her, it looked to me as if she was simply staring at a spot on the wall parallel to her. I took a quick glance over, but couldn't seem to locate anything worth staring at. I mean, it was just a wall. After a few moments of contemplation, I came to the conclusion to leave it. I mean, we all zone out sometimes, don't we? If that does not sound particularly strange to you, I can guarantee that this encounter was only scratching the surface. After that, a few days had gone by where nothing noteworthy had occurred. But then, I saw him for the first time. An individual, which I can only describe as the Suit. I was taking one of my breaks when he had first appeared to me, at the top of the stairs connecting to the next floor. Now, I was instructed never to go up there. Winston had told me that there would be no situation in which I would ever need to. So I had no idea what was actually above us. He was a tall, somewhat wiry man, wearing a 3-piece dark blue suit. Or maybe it was just a light black. To be honest, I couldn't tell for sure. On the surface, this would have just been a nothing situation. He was probably a supervisor or something. But what kind of supervisor wears a face mask? I mean, the guy was wearing a face mask with what looked to be black goggles on top. Black gloves as well. From the bits of exposed skin I saw, it was evident that he was pale. Extremely pale. I looked at him in moderate bewilderment, trying to gauge what he was supposed to be. I nearly had a heart attack when Winston grabbed my shoulder, pulling my gaze away from the suit. "Hey Jeff, you keep it busy?" "Yeah. I'm just waiting for the next set of boxes to transport." "Great. You know, in the meantime, you could probably help them pack it all in. Keeps everything moving nice and steady." Sure." He gave me a quick smile before inching past me and walking off. I looked back up, only to see the suit walking back to where it came from. I also saw Winston make a beeline towards the stairs, climbing them with a haste I had never seen him operate at before. In fact, his movements almost looked angry. He went the same way that the suit did, and I never saw him again that day. Obviously, some questions were raised there. Like, who the hell was that guy, and why did Winston seem to be so intent on having me not see him? But I was not going to ask. For some reason, that did not seem like a good idea. I decided to keep my head low and do my damn job. Whatever was really going on, I did not want to get involved in it. As the day was ending and I was preparing to clock out, one of the janitors nudged me as I walked past him. "Excuse me," I muttered out in surprise. Keeping his voice extremely low, he whispered to me, "Did he look at you?" I was lost for a second, but only a second. It was pretty obvious who he was talking about. "No, I don't think so." The janitor just nodded at this. "Okay, just don't look at him." I tried asking him some more about this, but he just simply told me he was busy and couldn't talk. Okay, what the hell was going on here? Those were the first few weeks. I still don't know what the woman was staring at or who the suit is, but hopefully I'll never find out. I've read stories like this, and they never end well. So, that was the first part of a great series by a legendary writer. Mr. Outlaw is one of the most legendary creepypasta authors probably of all time. And honestly, I'm so honored to finally read one of his stories. It's a great honor for me. And thank you guys for supporting me and getting me to this point where I could do this. This is awesome. So, thank you guys for watching this all new episode of FoxCast Creepypasta. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time!